Before we start this podcast, I want to definitely remind you of a sponsor for Fresh of the Word, 20 by 20 Apparel. Founded in 2015, 20 by 20 Apparel brings original tributes to pro wrestling's classic arenas, moments, and events. They look to spotlight the bloopers, bleeps, and body slams along with the biggest, smallest, strangest, and strongest. In the world of wrestling, where there's hundreds of shirts, promotions, flyers, social media accounts, and ads, don't get lost in the sea of parody shirts and display fonts. They can provide professional graphic design services at a reasonable price. 20 by 20 also hand screen prints all the tees in-house. So if you'd like to discuss a possible run of tees, posters, koozies, foam fingers, or even Zubaz, then drop them a line at 20by20apparel.com. That's the number 20x, the number 20apparel.com. And also check out their enamel pin line. It's super cool.
Fresh is the word.
Welcome to the Fresh is the Word podcast. I'm your host, Kelly K. Fresh Frazier. And like always, we have the freshest of guests for you. The guest for this episode is Meryem Saci, who is a soulful singer, songwriter, and Emcee raised in Algeria and escaped as a refugee to Canada back in 2000. She has a new EP out called All In that has been released on her Bandcamp. And it's a really dope EP. That's why I got in touch with her, because I wanted to. She had an interesting story. So we talked about growing up in Algeria and what finally caused her to flee her war-torn home to go to Canada. She's she's based in Montreal now. So we talk about that and her influences and about her musical upbringing and about the new EP. It was a really fun interview, man. She's a beam of light. It was mad cool just to kick it with her for a little while and chat about music and her life. Before we get into that, there's a couple things I just wanted to address. First off is the passing of former Georgetown basketball coach John Thompson. Like, this is a dude that's like, for the guys that he taught on that basketball team, like, it was them as humans first and athletes second, man. He saved so many young brothers' lives through that program. He most notably, he coached Allen Iverson, Dikembe Mutombo, Alonzo Mourning, Patrick Ewing. He changed these brothers' lives. He changed so many people's lives. He was a coach that he did it his way. He always did it his way, and he was, no matter what, he could be I bet he could be a bit of a hard ass, but that he was somebody who cared about seeing people exceed, especially young black men, coming through the Georgetown program. So, he changed so many people's lives. He blessed us with, some of the greatest basketball players we ever saw in the NBA. Allen Iverson's one of my favorites of all time. So, thank you, blessings to anybody who's been touched by, Coach John Thompson, man, because he was like 100% that dude, So rest well. And also, man, everybody has been abuzz, heartbroken, teary-eyed about the passing of Chadwick Boseman, man. He's like, it's crazy. First off, it's crazy that like he was able to hide, having colon cancer from the public for 4 years, battling it for over 4 years. That means like his group of his family, his inner circle is tight, loyal, so that they wouldn't, leak that out to anybody. Like that's crazy to even think, man. Like this is a dude who took his he was like the perfect example of why representation matters. He moved in a way in his life and work that inspired so many to try to live out their dreams beyond what the world tries to hold them back from. Like his cultural impact was heavy, where people will continue to fight for their own civil rights and the rights of others, so like their representation can matter also. And even when dying, he still breathed life into roles that mattered on screen and off. And we're so much better to to have the work that Chadwick Boseman brought in. He was Black Panther, James Brown, Jackie Robinson. I mean, he played these roles, and he there's more roles that stuff that he just finished up. And he illuminated. He made these figures, whether they're fictitious like Black Panther, or somebody like James Brown or Jackie Robinson, and illuminated those beings into something that young kids can look up and be like, yo, that's me. You know, like he 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 was that it guy, that made things made the you know made things just important, and he lived that on screen and off screen. So that's why it's such a painful death. And but what we can learn from this is that yes, representation matters, and that we shouldn't stop fighting for that. And like I said, man, this world was much better because of your contributions, Chadwick. So rest well, Black Panther. Wakanda forever. And besides that, please go check out my other podcast, Renaissance Soul. It's my Detroit history podcast. Been getting good reviews for it, good ratings, good feedback. I'm really having a fun time doing that. I'm also on a daily basis over on the Renaissance Soul Instagram page, which is Ren Soul Podcast. I'm doing the post of the day, and what I'm usually doing is just grabbing something from a Detroit artist, past or present, that I own, CD, vinyl, cassette, whatever, and making a little post about it, giving some information, a little feedback, a little recognition for those. Um, some of those I would love to do full episodes on in the future. But please go ahead and if you haven't already, just go to Instagram.com/. Run Soul Podcast. There's also the link on there to where you can listen to the Renaissance Soul Podcast, and also you can always check freshasthepodcast.com for more information about the Renaissance Soul Podcast. So without further ado, let's get into my interview with Meryem Saci after a word from our sponsor. Welcome back to the Fresh is the Word podcast, and like always, we have the freshest of guests for you. My guest for this episode is Meryem Saci. She is a soulful singer, songwriter, and MC based out of Montreal, but she was raised in Algeria, and we'll definitely get into that. And she has a new EP out. It's called All In. That was just released a few months ago, and it is fantastic. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on and welcoming me into your podcast universe. And big shout out for you saying my and pronouncing my name right. So I'm doing great.
Yeah, I just learned how to say it, so
Killing it. I
I'm
love
glad.
it.
I'm glad I was able to execute it properly.
That's right. Okay.
So, like I was telling you before we were recording, I recently came across your music, through one of the Bandcamp Fridays that they do recently, where they give all the artists, they waive the revenue fees, you know, and a mutual friend of ours, Jesse, he had a listing of Canadian artists who had Bandcamp pages, so I was going through there and yours really stuck out, and I was just like, this is fresh, and it's like the EP had just dropped at that time, and I was like, and then I started looking into who you were and everything, and I'm like, oh, she's a refugee from Algeria, and I'm like, yo, this is like a really cool story, and the EP was just amazing. So I was like, yo, I gotta hook up with her, man, get her on the show and talk to her about things. So there's a lot to talk about, but like, first off, like, how you doing these days? We're in this crazy pandemic, and you have a new EP out. Like, how are you doing?
Um, hey, I am doing a lot of ways, okay? I feel like the slogan for me has been one day at a time.
I think that's how everybody is.
Like we're all out here just holding it down until we can't hold it down anymore. So,
Yeah, then we got to take a little break and be like, yo, let me reset. Yo, I just had a couple of weeks of that where I'm like,
you
yeah,
know,
I'm done. I can't feel right now.
right? It's weird, man. It's like I went through so many phases. When confinement hit, I had just been back home after 3 months out of the country for literally 2 weeks. So I felt really blessed to be back home at that time, and my mother was also back home at the same time because for literally the first time in our 20 years in Canada, we left during winter time at the same time. Although I was in Morocco, she was in Algeria, I was on a contract, she was visiting. We were kind of gone both at the same time, and it was that fear of being stuck, right, and not making it back on time and all of that stuff. And we didn't realize how hard it was going to hit back then. We were aware of everything going on in China, but we didn't realize how it's going to reach us on the Western Hemisphere. So
Yeah.
we felt very blessed at first, like because it could have been worse. My mom is like 73 years old, and like there was so many elements to consider when you don't know what you're dealing with.
Oh
You
yeah,
know.
yeah.
And so, yeah, as it went along, I think I had this crazy drive at the beginning because I was in the momentum of coming back and having a few shows. I was about to go to South by Southwest. I was literally like
Yeah.
just about to leave. I booked my ticket. I
Ready to go, man. You're like back home, I'm ready.
also 2020 was lined up to look so good. I was having
Right,
so
man,
many
because your EP is slamming, and I'm just like, oh,
you.
I know she was ready to start killing it with this shit.
I was so ready. Oh man. And I was excited and I was finally getting funding and I was finally being able to do things in a way that's easier to handle, right? For
Yep.
all of us as artists and all touring musicians, right? So I lined up a crazy 2020 and the first thing that got canceled in the wave of domino effect of cancellations was South by Southwest.
Oh, that's like a gut punch. You're like, oh man, yo.
I'm telling you, man. And I was just devastated in a sense that I didn't know what it entailed, what it meant. I already booked the tickets. You know what I'm saying? Like I didn't have the money to be out here just like canceling flights and whatnot. And so, and I didn't know how a pandemic, if it's a force majeure, like did they refund you these things, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So those details, running out of money, literally like trying to invest everything you have in this showcase, and then you've just literally put together all your money to make videos to release your EP. So I was literally on the survival tip. So I pretty much got to a point where I decided that, you know what, I'm not gonna stop. I'm not just gonna like give up. Took me a minute to reassess, and also I had that little phase like, why me? Until I found out it was all of us.
Everybody was like, why me? And they were like, it's all of us. What are we supposed to do? I don't know.
It was just so weird. It's like we're all on the Titanic and it's about to sink. Like, what the hell?
Right.
And so and you thought somebody got it better than you. No, we all going through it, man. And so because it was the first festival being canceled, I didn't see it as a, a global thing. I was just thinking, of course it had to be the thing I worked for to be canceled.
Right.
Everything else is still gonna happen. And then next thing you know, one thing after the next, one thing after the next. That's when your mind really like just loves to play the victim mode for no reason. And that's when life was just like the next day or like 2 days later, get over yourself. Everybody's going through it. So breathe in, breathe out, and you're gonna have to figure out another plan as usual.
So our because okay, here in the states we're stuck. We can't go nowhere. We can't go to
Fact.
any other country right now. What
You're
can
not
what
any.
can you guys do?
Okay, so basically when confinement hit, I so did not know how deep this was gonna go, and I didn't realize that for 2 months I didn't even get out of my hood because we were locked in. Like we were
Yeah.
literally locked in. No traveling, no nothing. I had friends that got stuck. I had others that flew out in emergencies. I had family friends that literally were supposed to leave, couldn't. So there was all of this happening at the same time. Um, and so I just not knowing what was going on and trying to follow. And I'm somebody, like I won't lie. I'm not somebody that eats up mainstream media. Like I
Right.
don't. I don't have a TV at home. I'm one of those folks. So I'm out here looking for all my alternative research. But I'm also on the side of if you don't know yet, you can't be out here acting you know better because one research told you one thing, right? So
Yeah. What was going on in Algeria when you left?
a civil war. I believe it was the first trends of what you guys knew as 9/11. So we had a coup d'etat in 88 in order to maintain the power out of the hands of extreme, what they call themselves, fundamentalist Muslims. So it was in a way um, a time where there was a lot of corruption going on in the government. We had independence from the French people after like years and years and years of fighting. And then finally, when we had the independence, we went through some glory years and eventually corruption took over. And it was a time for change. And pretty much the Islamic Front was leading and people were following more their lead. And when they got majority vote, the military did a coup d'etat to make sure that they didn't actually take the presidency. So that declared war. And therefore, there was an armed fraction of that Islamic Front, a political front, that became like a military faction, called the G in English. I don't know what it's called, but in French is GIA. And they started pretty much opening fire and declaring war on the political powers that were in position, the military, the intellectuals, everybody that kind of like was going against or for the coup d'etat, right? So in that sense, it created a civil war that the people ended up suffering the most as the pawns because you don't even know who's against you, the government or the rebels.
Yeah.
But the rebels would be the equivalent of what we know today as like ISIS or Taliban or Al Qaeda. So I think they were in that era of when Al Qaeda was being financed and trained. And so there were different places where they were having training camps and they got to the Algerian sections eventually. And that created all of that. So it created a bunch of bombings, kidnappings. There was a lot of murders all the time, and it was just a very, we call it the Black Decade, but I guess it was just a very weird, interesting time to grow up in because I had a mixture of a crazy, almost deadly childhood, but also something super exciting and beautiful as well. Like
Okay.
I'm really happy I got to live my childhood there and childhood there.
Yeah.
And and then to have experienced my culture in that way, and to have experienced my people in that way. So other than
What was
that,
like the best things about your culture that you really like it really sticks out in your mind still that you really love to celebrate?
okay, so at that time I didn't even realize it was like our culture or whatever. But what I really liked was the livelihood, how everybody's um I don't know how to explain it, even though it was like mostly a man's world and women were limited a lot on going out and stuff like that. Um, it's like a community living,
Yeah,
that you don't really get here in the West. Like here it's more of an individualistic type of lifestyle.
yeah.
So there was more of a community feeling and a belonging. And um, at that time growing up, I wasn't like the most traditional kid either. Like we had like I had a crazy dysfunctional upbringing, but in the end of it, I connected the most with, I think, what I the spirit of Algerians, like what makes us who we are, I guess, in the context of that energy, because everybody's super unique and different, and I'm not in any way trying to be like we're all the same, but there's a spirit to that space, especially at that time where I was growing up in the neighborhood I was at. um but essentially what I cherish as memories are times at the beach, like the times with my family, the all the like holidays, the whole the religious holidays that we had, um, were always like moments that I valued a lot. I had a crazy upbringing, so a lot of things is a bit weird to explain to you. um, I appreciated things that were I don't know how to say, like just things in the food, the music that I didn't even know I was gonna appreciate so much later. But the fact that I grew up around it, I'm super happy I was able to connect with that so viscerally. And even though when I was younger, I was all into hip hop and R&B, I still bathed in elements of my culture unknowingly that would really influence me later, So
Yeah.
yeah, so there's a lot of things. I think the solidarity of the people is what I miss the most. There was this sense of solidarity that I don't think I felt anywhere. But I think that's what crazy hardships and war torn atmospheres will bring, because we were like in ghettos, poverty was already a problem. Like you don't have running water, electricity cuts off all the time,
Yeah.
the cockroaches all over the building. Like you just, so in the end of it, there's a lot of things, but you kind of like have more in common, and you live through things like whether it's like a natural disaster or just the reality of the hood. But in the end there was this feeling of just being home, as messy and as imperfect, that I value a lot, because ever since that day I never really felt home 100% anywhere, like ever since those days in a way. um and I
How did
didn't
you
realize.
eventually get out? Like, what was the plan when you finally left,
What was the plan?
or how did you execute it? How did you get out?
Okay, it's a crazy story, but we originally were supposed to leave to my father, who had gone to Canada before us, and he made it through there somehow, some way, and ended up getting refugee status and starting his own residency. And then he was able to bring his family and all that. Thing is that I didn't really grow up with my father, and there clearly wasn't solid enough, so he didn't end up kind of fulfilling that part himself with getting us out of the country. So we ended up having to flee the country, my mother and I. So we had to find a way to get out, and we did that, and we went through crazy hoops, and and we ended up getting fake passports to enter into Canada. And so we made it, and then we had the plan of asking for refugee status right away, and tell them what happened. So that's what we did, and we got really blessed. We had a legal aid because obviously we didn't have any money to get a lawyer or anything like that. So we get a legal aid, and at that time, why Canada was also because they have a program for refugees and newcomers
Yeah.
that is the most human version that exists out there from what I've seen in other research. But I was like 13, right?
Yeah.
13 and a half about. Um, I think like yeah, I was about 13 when it happened. So it's not like I had much of a say. I just went along with the plan and I played my role and I did what I had to do. But essentially, we went to court like 6 months after we arrived. So we had already had the opportunity to get installed, have access to food banks, went registered to school, and my mom already had the right to try and find a job, you know? So it was, and we didn't even have paperwork yet. We just had submitted our request to get asylum, you know? So honestly, on that tip, Canada, shout out. It was pretty much like a blessing to be able to have that opportunity to seek refuge in a place that did have some humanity left, you know? Um, and it's crazy to think that knowing now everything I know about how the Native Canadians and the First Nations are essentially living and treated here. It's like a crazy cognitive dissonance sometimes to be like, as a refugee, I got better service and more support, you know, than a native person to the land. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. It's crazy. Like,
to live with sometimes, you know?
yeah, it's crazy. Like, all my life, I've always, taken trips to Canada or to Toronto. I love going to
Yeah.
Toronto. It's like my, like, second
Right.
home, my favorite place to go. And it's just like, it's a place that I absolutely love. I love all just the feel of it, the people of it. And then, but at the same time, when you hear the history of Canada and like the treatment of their indigenous people, you're like, how did that happen, and how does that continue to still happen in this country where I go into and I feel like this amazing energy?
For real, there's something crazy about it too. It's like these moments happen to me like a glitch in the Matrix, man. It's like we went to Nunavut, Iqaluit, and that's like in the north, you know?
Yeah.
And it's Inuit people that live there, and yo, man, that trip fucked with me for a minute. First of all, there was like 22 hours of sunshine, and then there was like a 2 hour sunset and the sun rises again.
Yo.
So it
Right.
was summertime, by the way, and I still had a winter jacket on, but it was summertime.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was really impressed by just everything I saw there. Just the fact that it's like a desert in the north is like it was crazy to me. But what was pretty intense for me to notice was the reality of the Inuit people, the shacks, the fact that they were coming to beg in the hotels. Um, it was just crazy, man. The water bottle was $16. Like it was the prices were insane. And I had to understand the economy that works there and how why things are so expensive because you know it's hard. Like they have to get containers and blah blah blah, and it's super far and it's complicated. And so they get people from outside to come and work there, and they get paid amazingly because there's no other reason why you would want to live there. I think because it's like minus 51 in the winter, like it's
Yeah.
crazy. And so it's not for everybody, and it's not for the weak of heart. So at least not for me because I get scolded. Okay, so I saw like a whole crew of Ethiopians. I'm like, how are you surviving this? Please tell me the secret. I saw crews of like Filipinos. I was like, y'all, this is next level. You're doing this. Like respect.
Filipinos, they usually like it like way too hot.
Exactly. Like I'm like, how any Africans or South Asians or in any way somebody from the heat able to survive this? But you guess what? I survived Canada, and needing security and safety will make you survive anything if you can
Right.
if you can make the money, pay the bill, send it back home, you'll survive anything long as you can survive. Okay. So this is what it is. I was just impressed by the diversity I saw there, the amount of people I saw there. They were like, we get this type of revenue and all of that stuff. And in contrast, all the Inuits, it was like, holy tardy, bro. It was tough, you know, to understand the reality, to understand the challenges, to understand the prices, to understand how things are exploited and all of that. I just, man, it's like the hidden face of Canada, man.
Yeah.
It's crazy. You get to see it in other places like in Calgary, sometimes like in Alberta, Manitoba, and in certain places you're just like, yo, I get to connect with it. And even northern places of Quebec, but it's not always in your face. And everybody is used to seeing folks on the streets begging for money, but like I can't be at peace with that, man. Like it's like I'm never gonna be at peace with that. It's weird, man. In the city, whether it's Montreal, and then to go out there and see that, it's like, man, I don't know. Something's gotta give. Something has got to give. It's been way too long. This is way too sad. And it's just too wrong. And I don't know what the answers that are so hard to be applied so far. Like why so much resistance to applying what needs to be applied to ensure a certain dignity and a certain restoration, um, and access and opportunity and all of that stuff. Just God, man, things need to change so expeditiously, like Tia would say. That is just crazy to me that we're just not exposed to it enough to understand the gravity of it.
Right, right, right.
And it's just normalized, and it reminds me of how I grew up in a war-torn country for over like almost 12 years, and it was just normalized. Like we were still living, we were still going to school, man. We were still going to grocery store. Oops, well, there's a bomb in the grocery store. Like, oh, okay, somebody lost a life. We
Oh,
just got it. Like, boom, up, no more water. All right, okay, like things like you normalize. We humans are so adaptable, and it's crazy because that's when you find the strongest spirits, at least in my opinion, sometimes in the toughest spaces, man. Because that's really what you got is your spirit. Like
yeah.
it's your mental strength. It's your community. It's a lot of things, but your spirit, man, it's like something else. Like in places where you are just normalizing the worst, and just having to live with it and just adjusting with it. And it is what it is, man. And the levels of trauma being accumulated and compiled and all of that stuff. So it's just um there's definitely a level of resilience and beauty to look back on and to appreciate today, in terms of how people survive certain things.
Yeah.
But it just reminded me how we can normalize a lot of crazy shit. We can
Totally
normalize
do. Yeah.
oppression, we can normalize dictatorships, we can normalize genocide, we can normalize erasing a whole country off the map. We can just get caught up and too busy with our own hamster wheel, trying to survive and trying to make it and trying to get where we need to get so we can get that comfortable space where we're aiming to potentially die at. So it's like, it's interesting, it's very interesting to see the parallels. And once again, back to the real question, what is the value of human life, man?
So once once you were in Montreal, when did and you're someone who grew up listening to hip hop and R&B, you got influenced by your people's culture. Like when did you start, really, getting that itch to be like a music artist? When did that started to sort of like cultivate in your mind?
Plot twist, it always been there.
Always been there, yeah.
No, it definitely always been there. I have to say that if there's one thing that has been written upon my life is that music was going to be part of it. Singing was going to be part of it, and it has been my ticket out of a lot of things. Um, I can tell you that I went through a few phases musically, but one thing for sure is that I wanted to be a singer. Like it was something I knew I started singing before I started talking when I was a kid. Like I just loved singing subconsciously, consciously, like super early.
Yeah.
And I was imitating very easily. I was in love with Mariah Carey and Whitney Houston super like fast. Like it was just clear to me, like that's what it is. It was like written upon, like it was written upon me that that's what it was.
When did you start for like taking it? Started to take it seriously.
Say like even as I said, like back home in Algeria, like it was something that obviously my interest was pursued there on the level of a hobby, but with the goal of potentially doing something in music. But when we moved to Canada, the first thing I did was join a gospel choir.
Okay.
And then we joined a music school. Well, it's not a music school. It was a normal high school that had a music program as an extra thing, and they did like musicals. So I was auditioning for that, and I like got the first role the first year. Um, First time doing a musical. Like it was just something that I always wanted to do, and it's the type of thing I didn't really get training for, and I just went for it. Ever since I was small, and started writing songs when I was 8 or 9. One for my cousin and one for the absentee dad. And then it was just from there on, it was just clear to me that that was going to be part of my life. However, it did develop organically afterwards in the sense of my writing, even learning English through hip hop, all of that. Um, my situation kind of like turned around because I started by joining a gospel choir. Shout out to the Haitian gospel choir Nouvelle Génération. They adopted me like one of their own.
Nice.
And, um, and they made me even the soloist of the choir at some point. So I really grew up a lot with them. And I feel like gospel is like, man, that's the school for singing, man. It's just, at least if you love soul music or any of that, like it's just the heart of it, like blues, R&B, all of it is connected. So I was lucky to do that. And then I was doing the music in high school, right? Like I was like having to play like clarinet, which I hated, but I was just really trying to do the musical, to be honest. So
Yeah.
I got to sing in the musical and all of that stuff. So my interest and my passion for it was definitely there, and my seriousness about it kind of started early-ish. However, it became more professional at one point where I decided to I gave up on the gospel choir because I couldn't do everything at the same time, and that it was like too complicated. And then I finished high school, so I wasn't doing musicals anymore. And I started writing more and more of my music. I joined like a rap crew, and I was like the singer of the rap crew. But it was still like I'm going to school, doing it on the side, figuring myself out. Also, like learning how to write myself more and literally learning English as I went along. And so there were aspects of professionalism that came in, like I had done the Jazz Fest in my senior year of high school, because they have a segment for high schools. So I had like tastes of it.
Yeah.
My mom put me in like a contest or something, like things like I hated that. I never liked competition. I never liked any of that because that's not what I do it for, and that it never made sense to me in that sense. But it's very competitive, right? Artists in general, like singers and all that. So it's like an interesting path and journey to take when you follow this as a career,
Yeah.
to read things for yourself. But yeah, so I just pretty much think my mind was very much set that my music will become my career or part of my careers. Because in the time I was still studying, I did real estate. I had said like I had gotten a degree in college in commerce, and I went into political science in university. But in the meantime, I decided to do a certificate in real estate because I was always like, I need to have businesses running to make money so I can finance my music career if I don't want to be like um if I don't want to have to depend on a baby daddy. So it was just like, you know what I'm saying? Or like somebody that have to invest and tell me what to do, how to do it, and all of that stuff. Because I saw how I peeped the game when I was a teenager and people trying to get me into different weird things. So I was just like, I can't wait till I have my own money and I can do my own thing. So it was
That's
just
the way
like,
to
I
do
didn't
it.
want to be controlled by no old weird dude. And
Yeah.
so it was just like a mindset that I had And especially coming out of that rap crew and all of that stuff, I was just way too stubborn, to be part of a girl band or to do any of that stuff at the time. So I pretty much was just minded to like figure out ways to make money, but I also was responsible for my family really, really young. So like I started working fast after I got here. Like when I was 14, I got my first job. And by 18, I was the one paying for everything pretty much. And like by 21, I got my building and that's it. Like it was just like I had to make moves very, very young to survive, but also because whenever there was an opportunity, I tried to seize it based on like a vision that I saw that could make sense on the long term. So I saw real estate as something that was very um, legit and valuable. So since my friends were dealing drugs, I was like, I'm a hustle cribs because it's legit
Right.
and I could still make big money without having to work hourly wages. But I was just in the mindset of I have to do what I got to do. And so I worked a lot, man. I worked like crazy. And so I did music and I did take it seriously. And I did join the band Nomadic Massive when I was like 18. Um, but I was still very minded into, going to school and having some kind of something to fall back on if music didn't work out, and trying to find ways to be independent financially so I don't have to be selling out in no way. So I tried to aim for that, but I just didn't realize how hard it was gonna get to try to do it all at the same time. Like go to school in political science, work as a real estate
Yeah.
agent and broker, be part of two groups, So I had to start cutting things off and focus more seriously on what I needed to focus on. So I pushed into the real estate career, stopped the political science because I was financing my studies as well. And I was seeing that that was a dead end. And the more I was learning about politics, the less I wanted to be in it. Like, I want to know and I want to have a bird's eye view and a bird's eye understanding. But damn, I hate this world.
Right,
So,
right. I feel you.
like, I think I had aspiration of public relation, of international relations, and even like thinking to work for the UN and all types of stuff, like international ambassadorship, all types of things in my mind. But that went to drain when I understood how the game plays out. So I uh, I did do it, and I was a stellar student, but I had to cut it before the end. Too bad. I wish I just finished it, but it's okay. It is what it is. It wouldn't have led me anywhere anyway. So I just pretty much went in and decided to do Nomadic Massive. So I joined the band that was bomb and inspiring for me. And we got to like tour and do a bunch of stuff, travel a lot, all independent for the most part. So we broke ahead and faces a lot, and also enjoyed a lot of things that we had the freedoms to do and all that. So it was really cool to grow in that circle,
Yeah.
and at the same time to be able to secure a certain level of life, for my family on the side. So it was just like I was able to manage it for a minute, both of them having both hats on, like music, real estate by day, music by night, all the days and all of that. It was cool. But then it was just a crazy world. It's like both businesses that require you to be like 7 days a week, 24 hours devoted. uh, and real estate is like a gamble. And so everything in life is energy too. So 2 years ago, I decided to just take a leap of faith and do this music thing 100%. Um, independently, of course, at this point. But yeah, so I just been I guess I've been serious about it. I've been going about it professionally in a way, but I was just never like 100%. I was always like one foot in, one foot out. Um, so yeah, even in my band, like we all wanted to make it our priority, but everybody had mouths to feed and, you know, jobs to keep and all that stuff. So none of us were 100%, but honestly, we did amazing for not being 100%,
Right.
and all of the other things to do on the side. But I just decided that, you know what, I'm gonna put all this energy into figuring it out and this music thing, and give myself a chance, man. It's been too long that I've been dreaming of making this my life. And so that's it. It's been 2 years now, and I released a few projects, and had some cool collabos and exciting shows, all of that. But man, I'm still like a toddler right now.
Yeah, a couple years ago, you released "On My Way," and then this year you released "All In." Like, what's your what do you think right now? When looking back at that first leap as a solo artist, and like what did that teach you going into making this new EP?
It really taught me the title to go all in. Um, yeah, it was really a catalyst, I guess, like it was just feeling like life brought me to that moment where I've been wanting to take that leap for a minute, and I was waiting for the perfect time to do it. And so I waited for the worst time to do it and did it. And so it was just like, okay, I know that this might not be the best time, but it's now or never. And it definitely it definitely was a trip. It was like a transitional period, and it helped me kind of like have a little bit of freedom to explore my sound a little bit more, even outside the band as a solo artist, all of that stuff. Um, it gave me an opportunity to define myself as an artist um, a little bit more, and give myself permission to create, and to do this a little bit more full time. Um, so it was interesting. I learned a lot of stuff beyond just writing the music and inspiring the music. Like I learned so much more about how to get financing and to wear so many hats behind the scenes to like release projects and all of that stuff. So it's been a huge learning curve that I'm very, very grateful for. But it's like an understatement. It's a roller coaster and a half. And so it's inspired in many ways. Um, some titles in my project, in many songs there is like either whether it has a like one layer of like a love song in a way. For me it always has like a second or third layer of meaning, right? So for example, like the song itself, All In, I take it figuratively as in me diving all in into my heart, not just into a relationship, but into honoring my heart, honoring what uh, it's yearning for, and trusting it, and kind of like it's almost like you're trusting in life, you're trusting in yourself, you're trusting in a gift, you're trusting in a vision, you're trusting in a dream, you're giving yourself permission to say, hey, I can try and work on this vision that I have and make it work, like, and make it happen. Like this dream may be able to come true. And I have to define it on my own terms. Maybe it's possible,
Yeah,
and after so many years you get very jaded, and you get very confused, and you don't know, especially if you've been independent for a long time and you haven't done it for the reasons that would lead you into stardom in a way, because you haven't thought or tried to push for certain things in a way. You're just kind of in your vibe and your music making,
yeah,
and the community and into the moment, and not really being too businessy about it or too promoty about it, all of that stuff, and things just genuinely happening. And then at one point you kind of have to start getting super business about things and super strategic, and try to push for it like a machine, but you're not a machine. So it was just like a learning experience between staying creative, staying connected to my heart, while having my big old biz brain going off on some like what needs to be done, and the
yeah,
timelines, and the funds, and the grant writings, and the marketing, the releases, and all of that. And it's just like that drains and sucks so much out of you, But I was just kind of embracing it, as in like instead of doing real estate, I'm doing that. And so I got very much inspired into having time to process things and be able to explore new ways to create, and under my terms, I guess.
yeah,
And so yeah, it was cool. It definitely inspired like songs like Hustler, where I like talk about the yearning to thrive. I'm tired of being on survival mode, and it's this idea of feeling like if I don't stop, like I have to keep going, have to keep going, because if I stop, everything stops and I'm gonna die and all of that stuff. And it's like this hustle culture, this non-stopness, this idea of feeling like I'm always needing to catch up, always late. Sometimes I need to, have some type of like downloading machine where I can just like learn a new skill overnight, and
Right, right.
yeah, I can't keep up, man. And at the same time, how can you keep up while you consistently running and you don't take time to actually breathe in and sit with yourself and allow yourself to process things so you can express them and do what you're supposed to be doing, which is create and make music, you know?
Yeah, when it's
Uh,
all said and done, and you have this, EP finished, you know, what was sort of like your thoughts about it after you're done? Did you accomplish the things that you wanted to get out?
oh, no, it just felt like a continuation of my journey of discovery, like on my way I called it a mixtape because to me for many people it's an album. I mean, it is what it is to whoever at this point. It's out there. But for me it's a mixtape because it's like a mix of sounds that I accumulated and wrote in like a couple of, years, and then came together within a 6-month period with different collabos against all odds. So it's not like a thought out project how I would make or think of an album to be. But it was just more like I need to come out with things. I need to come out with my flavors. I have these songs and I want to put them out. So I didn't think too much about, you know, like what box I fit in and all of that
Yeah.
stuff. I just did the thing and I had that freedom of exploring who I am and playing with it. So I came out with that project as like an introduction. And so for me, this EP was like the sequel, which is a continuation on the path that I've been on. And which is for me, the the discovery of my sonic universe and telling my story and the stories that inspire me and how, like just give a piece of my lenses to the world.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
um I feel like that's going to be an ongoing journey of growth as I keep growing within this world, right? So
Yeah, I
every
think I think this I think All In was a great step forward for you, Um and it's a, like you were able to show off a lot in those songs, even your rapping skills, and singing and songwriting. It was like such a yeah. I felt like you really successfully found like a sonic space that you're comfortable in, and that's what I really got from it.
word. Wow, that's cool. That's cool that you felt that, because for me that was like the continuation of my exploration of it, but it felt more condensed, like um
Like focused.
more focused, yeah, like and more coherent in many ways. um and like having like a clear direction, I guess, of the signature that I wanted to share. And so
What do
it
you
was
hope that people listening in your audience get out of like this journey that you're going on, with these mixtapes, these EPs, where where you're going through this journey, even just finding yourself.
right, which just keeps going, to be honest, because some people know me as an MC, other people know me as an R&B singer, other people see me as this like hype Afro beat, jungle beat, like. And so it was so interesting to like be like, hey, yeah, I can do all of this because like literally I can't pick one. And I love all of this. So I'm put it out into one project. That was the first project in a way, like of me just exploring whatever I wanted to explore. But essentially to be like, oh, this is my sound or this is my signature, like it's a trip because some people know it's me or they recognize that it's me, no matter what I do, and they kind of like go along with it and they're fucking with all of it, whether I'm singing in French one day, whether I'm rapping in Arabic the next, whether, it's a 90s boom bop beat or a big old trap beat. Like, it's just whether I'm singing or not, like whether I'm doing something more traditional or like more reminiscent of my culture, whether it has like fusion flavors. I just feel blessed sometimes to be like, yo, if my people are open minded, man, they just
Yep.
write. And so I think that also been laid out as a ground with my band as well, because my band does a lot of those type of fusion sounds, and we like sing and rap in literally 5 to 6 languages. So Montreal is prone to that type of that type of open-mindedness, I guess, and being down with it, it was just cool to see that the rest of the world could fuck with it too, you know. But
Yeah.
I definitely feel like within my band we had like the hip hop as a strong denominator, but I didn't explain yet everybody what was my strong denominator. Like I had to still, it's like allow me to reintroduce myself, you know. So and just kind of like digging deeper towards where I really, really want to manifest because it's all here. It's all in my mind. It's all in my head. It's all in my ears. It's all in my head space, in my energy field. But to translate it out, it's tough and to find
Right.
the right people to do it with. And I feel like sometimes, like, I do have some things that I'm lacking, like the fact that I'm not mastering an instrument per se, you know. Although I taught myself how to beatbox enough to like mimic the beat that I want and like sing the parts that I want and things like that. But it's just beautiful when you find the people that help you translate your ideas and grow
Yeah,
on it.
there's a lot of people that are like that, like in big bands that they don't
Yeah,
know how to play an instrument, but they know what they want to hear. So they'll be like, "Did, did, 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 did," and they'll like, and somebody in their band will be like, "Oh, okay, yeah," and you're like,
exactly. So,
"That's it."
or the beauty that I experienced thanks to my band is that we had some producers that ended up picking up an instrument after, but they were producers first.
Oh,
You
okay.
know, like drummer was a rapper and then he beatboxed and then he made beats and then he picked up the drums. So it's interesting, you know, like, and it was because we needed a drummer and you know, so and we have somebody else in the band who's mostly a producer, but he acts to be a great musical director for the live band, you know, because he knows how it's supposed to sound, you
Yeah.
know, so it's cool. We have all these facets and these hats and ways of translating our sounds to each other, even though we don't have like the right terminology or the right word or the schooling behind it and all of that stuff. And so we were able to
Right.
kind of organically connect and communicate like that because truly music is the universal language, goddamn. But that vibe, you know, vibes don't lie, even if it's not perfect, if it's not polished, you know.
That's the best
So
stuff. You know, it doesn't. It needs to be dirty. It needs to be organic. You know.
there's something about it and it encapsulates, you know, that time space, that time period, and that energy at that time. So it was really cool to have that experience with my band, which gave me more confidence to do it on my own, right? And to connect with other musicians and other producers and all of that stuff that were able to understand my crazy brain and go with it or propose me some dope beats and allow me to play with them and add things and all that stuff. And so that's it. Like it's just a I think it's a journey and the people that I meet also help shape the sounds that I end up exploring more of, you know. And I'm somebody who played a lot along what was given to me, like the beats that would be provided to me. But my universe shifts when I could create my own stuff, you know?
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely.
It's like I don't just have to adapt to the beat that I'm hearing. I can literally create the sound that I'm hearing in my head, the song from it. Like, bro. So it was great. So in that process, I think that's and All In was dope because of that, because there was like a clearer direction in terms of the sound to dig for. And even though it had more of like a 90s R&B feel in certain songs or whatever, like there was there was just elements that I wanted to explore, and I still feel like I'm just at the tip of the iceberg, you know.
Yeah,
We're just
yeah.
about with the substance, you know. I'm just exploring a little bit and trying to figure out that box finally, because it's so interesting when you can't fit a specific box to understand eventually that you kind of either got to create your own box or polish and refine your sound enough for it to still have your authentic touch that fits whatever box that already exists, you know?
Right, right.
Um, but yeah, it's just that beautiful balance of serving the authenticity of the art.
Yeah, as we want things down here, I always like to ask this question to people. And you've had this very interesting life, and I've really enjoyed hearing everything about it. Um, what sort of a nugget of knowledge, a lesson that anybody listening to this interview, doesn't matter where they come from, the avenue of artistry, what their background is, they could sort of project into their own life, something that you've experienced.
Woo. It's so crazy because I can share my experiences or things like that, but I never feel like I'm in a position, to like give a general advice. I feel like everything is so unique in their own way. But I think for me, what I can maybe say is that, okay, what helped me a lot into pushing through barriers that felt unattainable, because I still struggle with it. It comes in waves. Sometimes I have to remember that I went through worse in order to have the strength to go through whatever it is now. Um, is like don't underestimate the value of experience, the value of um, integrity and what it truly means to you. So for me, what I've understood is that everything depends on the meaning you give it, and the power you give it. So whether you're in a position of adversity, right, is how you see yourself in it and how you see yourself out of it that is going to make the difference. And so for me, it's like no matter what had happened, the things that helped me was to be able to keep that in mind in a way of like not feeling like I'm the victim of anything or the victim of my circumstances or anything like that, in order to be able to keep it pushing, but also to give myself permission to dream bigger
Yeah.
and to believe that I can go further than the limitation presented to me right now or whatever it is that I'm going through. So things shift and change a lot. And sometimes your definition of success changes, your definition of freedom changes, your definition of happiness changes. And that's okay. You really, truly got to seek into what it truly means to you and align yourself with that and adjust accordingly, because otherwise it's not even worth it, bro. Like it could get so rough, man. It could get so rough. So for me, that's the type of things that are helping me move forward in any way, kind of like aspect of life, but especially when it comes to music and the idea of taking a leap of faith and the idea of like believing enough to be like, oh my God, I might break my face, but let me give myself a chance and all of that stuff. So it's crazy because I had thoughts of myself that I was like fearless and I went through worse and I can conquer anything if I made it this far. I used to think like that, not realizing what it is like to be in the trenches of another type of struggle, and how this world and this industry works, and also how being an artist truly unfolds, and what it truly means to you. What are you after? What are you chasing? Do you want fame or do you want something else? Do you want what kind of mark you want to leave behind? Is that what matters to you? What kind of sound, what kind of staple, what do you want to be truly? The real questions that you have to ask yourself at every phase of life. But sometimes you can get caught up in the mix, you can get caught up in the trends, you can get caught up into views and likes and all of that. So I can always bring it back to Chronics, one of my favorite artists. He has a song that is like, I do it for the love and I do it for the likes. So it's just like about always remembering why you're doing what you're doing and why you're like if you're forgetting why you're alive, man. It's just don't underestimate the value of your experiences and remembering important things, and putting things in perspective and priority, and that as long as you're breathing, it's worth it. So
Awesome.
yeah, that's what's up.
Awesome. It's been great talking with you.
Thank you.
Amazing stories. Um, Before we get out of here, where can people go online to get more information about you and check out your music?
You can check me out anywhere under Meryem Saci, pretty much all social media, Meryemsaci. So that's the name, and the website as well, MeryemSaci.com. About to come out with some merch, but I released the EP about, I don't know where we at now. It's already been 2 months.
Yeah, it's been yeah.
Months. What the hell? So okay, it's been 2 months, but the was still fresh out the oven. And because I don't get to tour it this year, I've been doing some live streams, and so there's a few available on YouTube, and and IG. But we're gonna keep it going with more, I guess, virtual contributions soon. And I'm already working on new music, but all social medias. I'm mostly active on IG though, but that's where we at. Meryem Saci.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you
you
for
for
having me.
being on the show.
I appreciate you, and it was really fun talking to you. I hope we get to connect some other time, some other way, maybe when I get to finally come to Detroit for a show.
Thank you for listening to the Fresh is the Word podcast, hosted and produced by myself, Kelly K. Fresh Frazier, empowered by Anchor at anchor.fm/Fresh is the Word. Fresh is the Word theme music provided by Steve O. You can find more of his productions at iamsteveo.bandcamp.com, and that's EYEAMSTEVEO.bandcamp.com. Fresh the Word is available on all major streaming platforms. Please rate and review on Apple Podcasts and Stitcher. If you want to support Fresh of the Word, please consider pledging via Patreon at patreon.com/freshoftheword. Follow Fresh of the Word on social media on Twitter at Fresh of the Pod, on Instagram at Fresh of the Word Podcast, and join the Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Fresh of the Word. For more information about Fresh of the Word and our other podcasts, Breaking Records and Renaissance Soul, and a collection of pop culture articles and reviews, please visit freshofthepodcast.com. Thank you for listening and your support. Goodbye and good night.
Fresh is the word.